Hello everyone, SimCFI here, and yes, this is X-Plane 11, the beta. It just looks so good, and I love this default 172 that I had to make another video with this, and I finally got the shadow play to start working again so the audio wasn't so loud. So let's get right into it. So we get inside this cockpit, and we're going to ignore this bug over here with the VOR gauges. So what I wanted to cover in this lesson real quick, it's already been covered in another video, but I really wanted to go over it one more time. And that is where you should be focusing your eyes when you're flying VFR, where we're supposed to be looking out the window. Yeah, this is our most powerful instrument as a VFR pilot. So we come inside, we're looking at the instruments, and everything here is pretty much supplementary. It helps us fly more precisely, and obviously in an ATC environment where we gotta maintain headings and altitudes, we gotta have the precise instruments to do that. But the way we set up the airplane to fly those precise values is by looking outside. So let's start with straight and level flight. So as we're sitting here naturally, we're looking out the front window, and sometimes your view, especially in real life, maybe down here, maybe just not tall enough to see over the dash even if you crank the seat all the way up. But if you can see this, that's even better. It's always good to see the nose. But at either rate, you're always going to have a reference point. So whether that be the top of this dashboard, or the engine cowling, or some other point in the airplane, you're going to have a reference point to reference the horizon with. So for straight and level flight, you obviously want to make sure that dashboard is level on the horizon, and what we really have to do is figure out how much distance is between our reference point and the horizon line. So once we get this plane established in straight level flight here, once I get it situated, we're sitting just above 3,000. We'll get it down back to 3,000 feet. Notice the VSI is pointing down, so now we pull the nose up, right about here, and I'm going to give it a little bit nose up trim, I think is what it needs. Alright, so we're sitting here at 3,000, pretty much level, and maintaining heading. We're pointing to the right of town. That's downtown Seattle down there. And yes, I know we're going right through all the airspace. Okay, so looking at the horizon, we got the airplane. You look at your instruments, we got 3,000, we got basically a zeroed out VSI. Let's nudge it up a little bit. And you want to memorize the distance, kind of infuse this picture in your brain. How much distance you have between the nose or the cowling, your reference point, and the horizon line, and kind of see how much distance. In real life, I tell students to hold up their hand in front of their face a bit, kind of on the dashboard, and see how many fingers you have between your reference point and the horizon line, and memorize that. And that is your level flight pitch attitude. You want to have the dashboard level and see how much distance you have between the reference point and the horizon, and that's what you're focusing on. And this allows us to be looking outside at the city, at the Space Needle down there. And then when you look out the wings, out the side window, you can look down at the scenery and all that, and looking for traffic too, obviously. But you want to note the position of the wing. So you see the wingtip over here, the distance between the horizon line and the wing, and the horizon line and that wing. And it's already starting to look a little bit different. And you look back at your instruments, and you see we're in a slight left-hand turn. You can see the dashboard is cocked to the left a little bit, and the heading indicator is slowly moving. The turn coordinator is indicating a turn, and the attitude indicator shows a turn. So we'll look outside. I'm focusing my eyes back up to this picture. I'm going to bank right until that dashboard is level. And then you look back at your instruments, you can see the turn has stopped. And if you look back at the wingtips, you see they've kind of stabilized a little bit. It kind of wants to turn left, it feels like. Another way you can tell if you're turning by looking straight ahead is seeing if the scenery, if the terrain is moving left to right on the panel. So if we bank to the right like this, you're going to start seeing things in the distance moving left and right across the panel. So that's another cue. And I bring up all this stuff because there's a lot of people that use the flight simulator maybe to help them with their private pilot training. And private pilot training or sport pilot, or wherever your initial pilot certificate is, the biggest thing they're probably going to try to teach you is to look outside and fly visually, because you got to navigate visually, look for traffic, and simply control the airplane with reference to just looking outside, really. We're not training you to be an instrument-rated pilot yet. That is a secondary thing that you do. So, trying to break these bad habits early on. Because most sim pilots are just going to come in here and stare at the panel, and as you can fly very accurately, but it's just not really proper how you fly VFR. So we talked about straight and level flight, how to maintain it by looking at the wings, looking outside basically all the windows, and then secondary referencing the instruments. So what happens if the nose, if the attitude changes again? So let's say the nose starts pitching down, like when we reduce power, the nose will pitch down. You can see the terrain, it looks like you're flying backwards. Well, we're not flying backwards, that's just the nose dipping down. So we can, we'll add the power back, we'll pitch the nose up to our memorized distance, right about here. Now look at the instrument, and you see the VSI zeroes out, and you can fine tune it from here. Okay, so now we need to go back up to 3,000 feet. So typically when we do a climb in a GA plane, we're going to push in the throttle all the way to full, and then we're going to pitch the nose up, and now what we're doing is establishing a climb attitude. So looking outside at our reference point, the nose, and the horizon, you see the distance is less. And that obviously means that we're going to be entering a climb. And so we establish the climb by pitching the nose to a fixed spot. Let's say we want to climb at 80 knots. We're going to go past 3,000 here. So we're at full power, and this is a 172 SP. VY is usually right around 80 knots or so. So let's get it right around there and see what that looks like. And so when you pitch for VY or any specific climb speed, you want to know where the horizon line is going to be in relation to your reference point. So right now, this is probably a 180 horse engine. It's we're pitching up a little bit more than we do in a 172R, and so we're seeing that 80 knots, the horizon line, is kind of coming through where, at least in this viewpoint, where the dashboard and the cowling meet right up here. That's kind of where the horizon roughly is. And so when we level the nose, we push it back down to our predetermined level flight pitch attitude, keep the power in for a second to allow the airspeed to build, and then reduce the power. Let's do it right about there. So now we're holding 4,000 feet, everything is zeroed out, and you look outside and it looks just like that level flight pitch attitude. So again, if you want to do a climb, add power, pitch the nose up to a predetermined spot that you memorized from just experimenting like we did. So now if we hold the nose here, we'll see our airspeed is going to decay back down to 80 knots. It won't go very fast, but it'll decay down to 80 knots. See, it's still going down because we're holding it in this predetermined spot. We could pitch the nose up and make it slow down faster, but if you learn this method and just pitch it up to a predetermined spot, it shows a little bit more control of the airplane instead of pitching it up and then going, oh, okay, now it's slowing down too far. Then you pitch the nose down to try to speed it up, and you're really just kind of chasing it. And that is one sign that you are looking at the instruments too much and not looking outside and establishing these predetermined visual pitch attitudes. So we're entering a climb 80 knots, you just put it where it should be. Okay, we'll level off at 5,000. Let's start looking. We'll look outside and push the nose down. Anytime you want to change, your pitch attitude or any configuration, you always want to look outside. So we looked at the instruments, we saw that we were approaching 5,000 feet, so looked outside and pushed the nose down. Okay, and I just took a glance inside, see that the VSI is trending upwards. So I look back outside, try to reestablish this pitch attitude here, play with the trim. I'm staring outside, glancing inside at the instruments, because you gotta look at them to make it fine-tuned. But it's primarily set out here and fine-tuned and checked by looking inside. The last thing is really when you're establishing turns. So typically we'll do 20 to 30 degrees of bank. So obviously when you do a turn, you want to look in the direction of the turn and clear it. So we'll make a right turn. Now let's take a look around real quick. It's always a good habit to be aware of traffic and terrain around you and anything else really. Alright, so we looked right, we cleared to the right. We're going to enter a right turn, right aileron, a little bit of right rudder, pitching back just ever so slightly to maintain altitude. So we're looking outside. So let's look at the attitude indicator. There's 20 to 30, that's about 25 right there. And we see that we're not really climbing or descending. And so you want to look outside and same deal. Look at the angle of the dashboard versus the horizon. And this is about 30 degrees of bank, and so maybe memorize a couple of different bank angles and see what that looks like looking outside, and then see how much distance you have too. See, we still, if you look off the center of the dashboard or the center of the nose, you see it's pretty much the same distance as your level flight pitch attitude. And so when you roll in and out of these turns, you pretty much rotate it kind of around that center point. And so see, we let go, and there's a little bit of fine-tuning to do, but looking outside visually, you can really make this stuff happen. So we rotate this back to about 25 degrees of bank, looking outside. And so what I do with students is we'll get them nice and straight and level. You know, I have them practice looking at the instruments, looking outside, and then I'll tell them to make a right-hand turn. So we clear to the right, and then I put up a checklist in front of all the instruments, and it gets rid of the instruments, and I tell them make a level turn to the right. So we do that, pitch the nose back a little bit, enter 30 degrees of bank, and let's just see how well we can do this, because the view is a little bit different now because of how I lean forward. So now let's go ahead and roll wings level. Alright. We descended just a little bit. Maybe about 100 feet or so. I think we were 50 feet shy of 5,000 when we started. But those are some exercises you can do to really make sure you're looking outside. You know, establish these turns. Really be able to look around. Because once you start doing that, you kind of feel a little bit more free and not constrained to the cockpit. You can look at scenery, look for traffic, and look at your navigation points. Come back inside, see I just descended through that turn. So I'll pitch the nose up, and I can continue looking around, because then I'll come back inside and see, okay, I'm almost at 5,000 feet. Let's look outside, get that nose pushed down, kind of reestablish it, and then you can go from there, maybe a little bit nose up trim. Okay, then we keep going. You know, I'm looking at the scenery, but out of my peripheral vision, I can see that the wingtip is level, and I can see it's not turning. Maybe when I'm looking at this view, you know, you can see the dashboard in your peripheral. So when you use your peripheral vision, you can fly visually pretty well too. Alrighty, so that was a quick little video on an update of where to keep your eyes when you're flying VFR. You know, all this stuff down here is supplementary. You just use it to fine-tune the accuracy of your flying. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's been many months since I last posted, and as you can see, I'm pretty excited to get into X-Plane 11, be getting a few add-on aircraft, but this default 172 is really good too. Alright, so I'll see you guys in the next video, and let me know in the comments what you guys think.